Thank you, President Kwasniewski, and we also look forward to honoring you this evening. I think during this 2 days we're going to be putting things on the plate that we're going to want to come back to, and I think one of them is going to be OSCE, was raised by Secretary Steinberg, the potential of what the Russians may put forward to OSCE, and are we ready for it? Do we have an answer to it? I think these are interesting questions. I'd like to talk to the Estonian minister next, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, as Jim Steinberg was talking about global challenges for the transatlantic relationship, but you've had some pretty local challenges, including cyber attacks. I'd really like to hear from you how you view the future of the relationship, and is there a closer, more immediate type of relevance for you, or do you sign on to this global role for the transatlantic relationship?
Well, thank you, Chair. First, I've been asking myself a question: what contribution to the world has been more significant on behalf of NATO? Whether maintaining stability and peace in transatlantic space during the Cold War times for 40 years, from 49 to 89, or bringing down the Soviet Empire, and by that means enlarging even before the new countries who were freed from the Soviet occupation became members of NATO and EU. And I think both contributions have been significant. And this is a clear example that the alliance is able to contribute effectively, even beyond their core functions of Article 4 and Article 5. I mean, this was a major contribution to I think, global peace and development. Secondly, I'd like to make a short remark concerning where we stand today with an enlarged NATO as well as the European Union. And I think the Central and Eastern European countries who joined in have substantially contributed to that transatlantic partnership in qualitative manner. They've clearly, and here I'd like to underline the role of Poland, they have clearly contributed to a broader thinking, to a revitalizing, offering a chance to reconsider the role of NATO, further enlargement. Shall that enlargement go even as far as Pacific or not? So the Central and Eastern European countries have essentially contributed, and I think made NATO a much more capable and able organization. Now, if you ask me how NATO and the transatlantic partnership in a broader sense can stay relevant, then I think we have to make a difference in the perspective of, say, 5 to 10 years and 30 years' time. Why I'm saying 30 years' time is essential. I think we see in very many neighboring countries fundamental trends that we hardly can influence, that is demographic trends. Look at what's going on in Russia. If we truly look what's going to happen in Russia in 30 years concerning population or depopulation of Siberia, if we look at how many immigrants arrive in that huge territory, so we see that the challenges ahead are paramount. They are hard to tackle with our present understanding. That is changing the population by not by a few percent, but maybe 1/3. And this is something that is not only true in case of Russia, but also a number of other major partners of this transatlantic partnership or alliance. In the short run, I think in the short run, the most important challenge is we have to understand that we all agree that history is, there's no end of history, as it was proposed a little bit more than 10 years ago, after the collapse of the bipolar world. What we have today is a different place, and it's not yet clear, I think, whether this new world order is more stable in long run, 20, 30 years, or less stable than it was during the 20th century. There is a high potential of threats that may develop into major conflicts, strategic shifts. So I think one of the questions of the post-Second World War security order is whether we are able to maintain that, develop in an evolutionary way, or we have to yield to the pressures that look for a revision of this order. And this is essentially a transatlantic creation. If you look at UN, if you think about WTO, the World Bank, IMF, OECD, other organizations that we've created with the help, with substantial contribution from those countries of the transatlantic space. So I think we have a strategic challenge. And we have to be able to respond to that question. Is that a sustainable solution for 30, 40 years? Are we able to manage that evolutionary, or are there threats that may threaten the architecture itself? So that's where I see a great problem. And then now coming back to the region. I think that we clearly have our recent past and perception of threats. And first and foremost, this goes back to the Soviet period, to the years of 50 or more years of occupation. Well, definitely all those countries feel a lot safer. And I think the possibility or probability of a conventional threat is very, very, very low, although it can't be neglected. We know that after Georgia, that there are forces and intentions to use force to solve problems. But I think we have to have a broader look even in this region. If we too narrowly look at the Central Eastern Europe and its threat perception as we have inherited it from the recent 50 years, then I think we lose a broader perspective for the next 50 years to come. And here I'd like to have I would say, a more open discussion. I equally know that it's not easy to have a true strategic partnership if your partner is openly questioning your values. I think a very important statement, which I always underline, is that you rightly ask us to respect your values, but we kindly ask you to respect ours. And this is clearly not a strategic partnership, but rather a coexistence approach, as we have that with China in some sense. So I think we have to elaborate on that, how we can use this dual-track approach vis-à-vis Russia and other Eastern partners, and what we can do on a broader scale down to Afghanistan.
Let me briefly follow up on that, and so we can get maximum discussion. If you also can answer this question briefly, and we'll move on. And that's picking up on President Kwasniewski's mention of Russia and a new European security architecture. Russia is your neighbor. Is that sort of new security architecture necessary that would bring in Russia in a different way? Are you less or more concerned about Russia as you see developments in the country in the U.S. reset policy?
Well, do we need a new security architecture in Europe and transatlantic space? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I have to say that I haven't seen the rationale, except having a greater role for the country or who proposed that new architecture. So there is clearly too little content so far in this proposal of the new security architecture. There is clearly an ambition, and there is clearly a hidden agenda, meaning that we have to revise what we have achieved so far in the framework of NATO as well as EU.